Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hello, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to this session. This is my first time getting a chance to develop a Twitch channel, so super excited to be here. Today's session was all about IoT. I'm a big fan of IoT. I love devices. You probably can see behind me a whole array of random things because I'm all about my IoT devices. And this session, we're going to be looking at what you can do with data. So by way of introduction, I'm Jim Bennett. I'm part of the developer relations team at Microsoft. You can find me all over the internet at Jim Bob Bennett. So Twitter, Instagram, GitHub, anywhere you look, Jim Bob Bennett, there I am. So please follow me for IoT goodness. In fact, I actually found out, according to one of these social media firms, that I am one of the top 25 influencers for IoT. So now I have to be really cool and, do all the influencer stuff. So expect me to be lounging across Lamborghinis or something. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, today's session is all about IoT data. So what can you do with data? So the Internet of Things, IoT, the Internet of Things, creates a vast array of data. So the idea between IoT is you have all these little devices, all these things that connect to the internet. They interact with the world around them. They gather sensor data. They gather temperature, vibration, humidity, all this kind of data. They will gather that. They will send that to the cloud where something is done with that data. And then once that something is done with the data, decisions are then made, and that data is used to either control things in the real world or provide reports to people, provide information. So some examples as just to kind of the scale of this data. Starbucks. We talked a year ago at Microsoft about how we've been working with Starbucks to bring IoT to all their coffee machines. Now, Starbucks has, I think it's something like 30,000 stores globally. And each store can have up to 15 pieces of equipment, and each piece of equipment can have multiple sensors on there. So suddenly you've got 30,000 stores, 15 bits of equipment, that's 450,000 bits of equipment. Say there's 10 sensors on each, that's 4.5 million sensors gathering data all the time. That's a lot of data that comes through. Now, what do you do with this data? Obviously, for someone like Starbucks, they want to analyze this data. They want to look for problems in their machinery. They want to see, is this machine working properly? Is it producing the right coffee? Is it broken? What's the demand for coffee? But then other scenarios, if you think something like a fitness tracker, you've got a device on a wrist. It's gathering data about the person wearing it, their heart rate, their amount of exercise, how much their arm moves because they're running or they're rowing or what have you. And all that data's got to be gathered. It's got to be sent up to the cloud, and then individuals got to be able to view that data. So you're going to have somebody who wants to see how much rowing did I do. You're going to have people who want to see what is my activity. You've got to have decisions made on it. So there's a whole load of different things that IoT has to do with all this data. And it's just growing and growing and growing. We've got factories coming online with millions of sensors gathering data. We've got offices coming online with sensors gathering data. We've got smart cities. Everywhere you go, there's all these different devices gathering data, sending it up to the cloud to do things with it. So I wanted to kind of just show today a few fun ways of actually starting to interact with the data. Now, there's kind of three parts to the whole data flow. There's the actual devices creating the data. You've then got the decision making on the end, the AI models and all this kind of stuff that's kind of run on there. And then you have the bit in the middle that kind of gets that data from the devices to the decision making. Now, there's a bazillion different types of devices we could talk about. I could literally stream for days on end just covering the different types of devices. Same with the decisions. There's, so many different decisions you might want to make. So, it's going to be impossible to really cover that in any kind of sensible time frame because each decision is different. It kind of depends on what you want to get out of your data, what kind of analytics you want to run, what kind of results you want to get. So instead, I thought it'd be fun to actually focus on the middle bit. The bit as an IoT developer that's fun, the bit where I actually get my data from my device and then send that somehow, manage that data somehow. What's that intermediate step to get the data from the device up to my analytics? And so if I can just share my screen. So just a sneaky fact for you here. I'm actually relying on Christopher, my good friend, and often troll of me to help me with this because I had technical problems. So awesome, my screen shared. Thank you very much, Christopher. So here's just some data. Here's a load of data coming in from a bunch of devices. We're seeing data here. It's just being plotted on a chart. But how do my data get here? And what can I do with it when it goes on further from here on in? So to start with, in terms of devices I'm using, I've actually got a whole lot of these set up. I'm going to hold this to the camera. This is a nice little board that is great for prototyping. It's a board that Microsoft worked with a bunch of folks on. It's known as the Azure Iot Dev Kit. You can pick it up from places like Amazon or Seed for about $40 US. It's got a range of sensors, buttons, screen, a little finger connector that you can plug on other bits and pieces to it. What's it got? Accelerometer, gyroscope, magnetometer, humidity, temperature, pressure. It's got lights, it's got buttons, all the things. It's a great little board. So I've got some of these set up to create some data, which I'm bringing into various IoT services. So I just thought it'd be fun to have a look at what we can do with those different services and where the data goes. So these are the boards I've been playing with. So I've got a few down here, all plugged in. Lights flashing, things happening. One thing that's the curse of an IoT developer, of course, is you have lots of boards kicking around, lots of cables, lots of lights. I'm literally spend my entire life tripping over cables and unwiring things and unconnecting things because there's just too many boards, So in terms of the IoT services, Microsoft has actually got two IoT services that we offer. One is called IoT Hub and one's called IoT Central. I'm going to start with IoT Central because that's kind of the lowest barrier to entry service. And that's the one that I've got up on my screen at the moment, the one that shows my dashboard. The whole point of IoT Central is it's a software as a service platform for IoT. So you don't have to worry too much about coding side of things. You can get data from your device. You define in IoT Central what data your device is going to send, and it can then automatically start generating charts and graphs for you. In fact, literally for this example, I wrote zero code. IoT Central has a thing called plug and play, so you can download predefined firmware for a range of existing devices. So for example, with this MX chip board, I can actually download the firmware that I need that gathers all the data from them. So I literally click a button, get the firmware, drag it onto my device, and then I can set up my device in IoT Central. So say IoT Central, here's all the lovely marketing gumph on it. It's a fantastic software as a service platform that does all the things you need. And it's great because it's fully scalable and it is kind of enterprise sized, but it's also accessible for the average developer. So me, I'm not a very smart developer. I can get working with IoT Central. I can get data in there. I can be successful with it without too much work. It's designed to be quite accessible, but then it grows to kind of the full enterprise scale if you want this for millions of devices. So the way you set something up in IoT Central is you define what's called a device template. And this is a thing that tells IoT Central what your device is going to do. And it says, here's what the data we're going to send. So I've got device information coming from my device. I've got controls for my LEDs, for my screen, data from my sensors. So all these things are kind of defined in this template that specifies what my device is going to do. And then once I've got that, I can then plot data on a chart. I can define my devices. I've got 3 devices defined. And I can say that these are the devices I want. This is kind of the unique identifier for them. And then I can use that to plot data. So I've got a lovely little chart going on here. I can see the humidity. I did 2 charts the same. Let's change this. I can see the humidity in my office quite easily. And I can just go here and I can just edit this. I want all devices. And let's put air pressure. Let's drag that on there. Yay. So you can see it's all kind of nice. It's drag and drop. It gives me a load of charts. And I've got my little charts here. But this data is here. It's in a chart. I can look at it. I can see my humidity. But what if I want to take this data somewhere else to make decisions with it? These charts can be great. They can give me a good oversight onto just how humid my office is. I can measure things like temperature, see how hot it is. You can see cycles of day and night as temperature goes up and down. I could use this for soil monitoring of plants, see what the moisture levels are. But if I wanted to get the data out to make automated decisions, I need to somehow get everything out of get the data out of this and put it into another format that I can use. Sorry, one comment in the chat just made me giggle. Ryo Takura says, getting the labels on cups is important too. Yes, That's one thing that Starbucks could probably do with automating, is have a way to identify cups a little nicer. One, there's an IoT solution. You could get some kind of special IoT cup that you just tell it your name and it actually pronounces it correctly and puts your name on there correctly. So that could be fun if they could IoT up their cups. So going back to this data, how can we get this data out of IoT Central and put it places? And actually, what's quite cool is IoT Central has got the capability built in to export data, so we can take it to other places. And actually, they decided to drop a new feature. I think it must have been yesterday or the day before, because this wasn't there last week, that has changed the export. So if you're using IoT Central today, you'll see data export legacy, data export preview. This was just data export last week. We love dropping new features. But the idea of data export is you can continuously export data from IoT Central to something in Azure, to an Azure service. And I can literally click here and choose where I want my data to go. This is so nice. This is what I love about IoT Central, is they thought about how you can reduce that barrier to entry. So I can say data export to blob storage. I then name this. I'd leave the default name. I choose a storage account. So I've got one here. I don't have a container on my storage account, so let's go and create one. I'm just going to. This is me in the Azure Portal. If you've not seen this before, this is kind of a nice little control center for Azure. It's a nice UI that you can use to manage all the different services in Azure. There is also a CLI. Some people like the CLI, some people don't. You probably see a comment from Geek Trainer in a minute, lambasting me for using the UI when I should be using the CLI, because he is all over the CLI. I'm a UI person because I'm old school. So I can go in here, into my storage account, and let's create a container for this. So we'll create a container, add a container, and we'll call this IoT Data. I'll create that. And now I just need to do this again. I should have picked this up. Might take a second for it to pick it up. Here we go. And that's literally it. Right, what does the acronym mean? Hashtag newbie. Yeah, CLI is a command line interface, so it's where you have to type all the words with the thing. Now, it seems that cool, hip, young kids, like Geek Trainer, they like doing the typing with the words. So they will bring up a terminal, they will actually type blah, 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 blah. There'll be AZ, IoT, blob storage, will create whatever, all the options and type it out. I don't like doing that because I'm lazy. I don't like having to remember all the different options that you have to type. I would much rather have a nice UI where I can literally click the button. I don't need to know what to do. I can look at this and go, oh, I want to add a container. I can click this. And then I can go through and I can just follow the instructions. I don't have to remember how to do things because I'm an old man. I'm too old to remember stuff. Whereas, Geek Trainer is the coolest, hippest, youngest kid I know from Shanna Microsoft. Yes, he's a cool, hip youngster, that Geek Trainer. Yeah, if you're a hipster, you can go full in CLI, So if you're not a boring old man like me, then it's all about the UIs, because I don't want to have to remember stuff. I just want a screen that I can click the buttons. I'm new school, I guess, because old school was it used to be all in the terminals. Then they invented UIs, and now we seem to have gone backwards to terminals. So yeah, buttons for the win. Thank you very much, BP Dynamite. Buttons for the win. Yes. Cool. So I've got my blob storage. I've got my export running. I literally did click, 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 and it's running. So now if I go here and actually look at my IoT data container, what you should see, you'll see this is all blurred out. I have a special magic add-on to Edge here that hides all my unique IDs to stop anybody stealing my keys. So that's why these things are blurred out. So here we go. And then I've got data for my devices. It's all broken down by date. So 2020, 8, 12, 16. So this is all UTC time. So here we have And there's a JSON blob here with all my data on it. I can just download that and then open that JSON file. And it's going to open it in the full Visual Studio. Let's close that. Let's actually open it in. Let's open that in VS Code. Come on. Open the code. Come on, code. There we go. So what we have got. Do I have the pretty on here? Yeah. So here's my data. Data came from this device. Now, no properties came through. So this is device information. It's device information. So what happens with the export is I have too many edge windows. What happens with the export is it exports multiple different things. So it can export device information, it can export telemetry, and it can export the device templates. So this device information will be information about all the devices that I've got. So if I look back at this JSON here, it's got my devices. This is the device. This is the model definition. This is kind of the interface that I've defined that says what the data that's going to be sent from the device, whether it's a simulated device, whether it's been provisioned, so any kind of properties that are assigned to the device. This gives me device data, but I can also get device template data. So that's kind of all the information about what the different templates are that are set up, because you can have multiple templates. And then telemetry is my raw data. So if I now go here and get my latest telemetry, there we go. Let's download that one. So Geek Trainer is Hipster Geek. Yes, Geek Trainer is now Hipster Geek. I should have to call him that from now on. Right. So let's open this file and let's actually look at the telemetry. Here we go. Yay. That's more like it. Format document. So here we have the actual telemetry data that's come through. So this is from device MX chip 3. I named my 3 MX chips MX chip 1, MX chip 2, MX chip 3 because naming is hard and I don't do naming. So that's my device names. And then here's all my system properties. So here's my humidity, temperature. For the Americans amongst us, this is in a thing called Celsius, which goes from 0 when water is freezing to 100 when water is boiling. Air pressure, and then the external monitor, magnetometer, and gyroscope details. So all that kind of stuff is there. All my data comes through, and I've got this. It's in blob storage. It's organized by date and time. So if I just go back to that, the structure of it again, so we can kind of see it. It's grouped by year, month, day, hour, minute. So I can then mine this data however I want, pull this data together, and do whatever I want with it. It's there in blob storage. It's there as JSON. So my data is now stored, and then it's up to me what I want to do with this. If I wanted to, say this, for example, was, I don't know, this was fitness tracker data. So I had a device on my wrist that was tracking my fitness. What I could do then is against each document, I could set like a partition key that's the user ID. And then when somebody queries their data, it just hits this storage, pulls the data out, and then it just sends them the data for that particular partition key for that particular user. So they can just literally just use this to mine raw data. So I've got IoT data from my devices to the cloud into blob storage, and I haven't written any code at all. This is to say, I just deployed the firmware to my device. It was a pre-built firmware. I used IoT Central so I could create a couple of buttons to get export, and I've got data in blob storage. Yay! Pretty cool. But storage is one thing. Wouldn't it be great if I could then take the data, connect it to another pipe to then send out to other places? And that's one thing that's quite cool about Azure is you can have these multiple pipes. you can literally create a pipe of events. So events go into a pipe, and then they come out the other side. And you have multiple consumers on the other end that can do things with that data. So if I was doing, say, data on coffee machines from Starbucks, I might want to send that data to a pipe and then have one job coming off that pipe that listens for data around maintenance. Is the machine vibrating too much? Is it running too hot? Is it running too cold? I may want to have another pipe coming off there, or another connection to the pipe that listens for data around usage. How many cups of coffee are being made? What types of coffee are being made? If we find that there's more cappuccinos being made than espressos, then maybe the milk frother might need more maintenance later on, or that could be wired up to the automatic ordering system, because if they're creating X number of cups of coffee a day, then they need to have X amount of coffee beans provided or X amount of milk being provided. So there's different ways you can analyze the data, and for that you can literally have one pipe with the data coming into and then multiple connections to that pipe that deal with that data, and it can deal with that data in real time. So one of the things we have to do is a thing called event hubs. So I've got an event hub. Let me just go back to my my Azure Portal here, and I'll show you my event hub. So Microsoft has this really great naming convention where they try to make names as descriptive as possible. And I know there are other companies that like to come up with really weird and wacky code names for things. We like to have very descriptive names about what things are. And unfortunately, sometimes that gets a little bit confusing. And this is one that always confuses me. So we have event hubs, and you create an event hubs. So when you're creating a new resource in Azure, you say, I want a new event hubs. It sounds a bit weird saying what you want an event hubs. But an event hubs contains multiple event hub instances. There's one of those ones that's, I've got an event hubs that's got multiple event hubs in it. So you create an event hubs, and then inside your event hubs, you create an event hub. Okay, and each event hub is a pipe. So the event hubs is the container that contains multiple pipes and connections and kind of manages all that. And inside that, you create an event hub, which is your actual pipe. So I've got this one here. This is my JB Firehose is my event hubs. It's an event hubs namespace, I guess is probably the more official term for it. And in here, I've got an event hub called my IoT Central Hub. And this becomes my big pipe. And I can now send data to this pipe and start doing things with it. And again, from IoT Central, it's the same kind of idea. It's clicky, clicky, clicky. I like clicky, clicky, clicky because it's easy. So I go here, and I click Event Hubs. I wait for it to catch up. Come on. Come on. Let's try that again. There we go. So I go here, I choose my Event Hubs namespace. So I choose my Event Hubs, I then choose my Event Hub. I choose the data I want. I'm just going to go for telemetry for now, and click Save. And again, the same as with Blob storage, it's clicky, 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 and I've got the data going through. So this is now going to start, it says it may take a few minutes, usually only a few seconds, but it's now going to start sending data to Event Hubs, to the Event Hub in my Event Hubs. So in a minute, that will all start piling through, and I'll actually start to see messages coming in on my little charts here, my Event Hubs in the Azure Portal. So give that a few seconds to start. But there we go. That says it's now running. So that's now sending data to this Event Hubs. So in my Event Hub here, in a minute, I should start seeing some actual requests coming in. And so this is just a pipe. The whole point of this Event Hub is it's a pipe. It is a hub for events. And like any hub, something comes in and then kind of goes out. Just same as like a train station, an airport hub, things come in, things go out. And so what will happen is the data will come into this hub. Let's see if I can refresh and actually see if any data appears on the charts yet. Okay, that'll start appearing in a minute, but the data comes into the hub. I can then attach things on the other side of that hub to then start getting data out. And from there, I can do loads of different things. I can start attaching blob storage, I can do analytics, I can do functions, and we'll kind of look at a bit more of what we can do in a little bit. So I just really want to see some data coming through. Come on, show me some data. Now, what's cool about the Event Hubs is that it's not a fire and forget message broker. It's not like a message comes in and then it goes and that's it. The Event Hubs can store messages. It's got things called a retention policy. So you can say how long you want to hold on to the data for. And that way you can kind of do replays. So if you've got an Event Hub and you've got data coming in and there's a service here connecting that's polling your hub, if this service goes down and then reconnects, it doesn't lose all the messages. If it's down for more than whatever your retention policy is, so if it's down for more than a day, then you lose messages. But if it goes down for like an hour or so, when it comes back up, it can carry on where it left off processing the messages. So you don't have to lose any messages if you don't want to. Obviously, how long you retain messages for is up to you. It's the usual. If you want to retain for a long time, it costs you money in storage. The less time, then the less time you've got to bring your services back up. But it's kind of cool that the fact that you don't have to worry about losing messages because of the retention policy. It also has these things called consumer groups, which allows you to define the bits on the end of the pipe. So you'd have one consumer group that's something would connect you to consume the messages, and that consumer group can do replays and pull the messages off and what have you. And then as you have multiple things connecting, you create multiple different consumer groups. So if I wanted one Starbucks job, for example, to look at maintenance, I'd have a consumer group for that. If I wanted another job to look at the amount of coffee being used, I'll create a new consumer group for that. So a consumer group is designed so that you can have different connections to the end of the pipe. And they kind of recommend, I think, it's no more than 5 connections per consumer group. I'm just going to use one because it's easier for now, for demonstration purposes. But if you are doing a production app, you'd have multiple consumer groups consuming the data from the Event Hubs. And you see now we've got some data coming in. We've got messages coming in. I've got a nice little chart that shows me how many are coming in. So I can actually see there is data feeding in. And this $default, this is my consumer group. So this is the kind of the first consumer group you get for you to start reading messages off. Fuel Snable says, this sounds a bit too much like Oruk. Is that a misspelling of work, or what is Oruk? Okay. It sounds like a bit too much like work. This is not very much work. Obviously, the more you do, there's a lot more work you have to do more cool stuff with it. So yes, this is my Event Hub. This has got my data coming through. Now I'm gonna stop here talking about IoT Central and flip back to talking about IoT Hub for a second. It will make sense in a second. So IoT Central, as I said, is a software as a service platform. You can drag and drop a dashboard. You can define what your devices should send. You can do all the kind of cool stuff with it in a no-code way. You can set up rules if you want to get alerts on things. If you're doing too much exercise, you want to send an email, you can do that. Oh yeah, so Fuel Snable says, I meant to spell work. I meant I'm doing Kafka at work, and then we talk consumer groups. Yeah, okay. Sorry if this sounds too much like your day job. Yeah, unfortunately it does. Actually sounds like Kafka with brokers, topics, partitions. Probably. I don't know Apache Kafka, I must admit. But I know there's a lot of similarities between these. The idea that you have the different message pipes you connect to, how you can divide it up. It's a lot of the underlying principles between all these kind of buses is the same. It's just the different implementations work in different ways. We use AWS, so I'm learning something new. Cool. It's always good to learn something new. Be really interested for you to try this out and see what you think is good and what you think is not so good. Could you use this to track the stuff you eat on a personal level? Just curious, as BP Dynamic. Well, I mean, yes. So obviously this is based off IoT data. This is based off data being automatically generated by a device. So it says, yeah, so say if you had a bunch of smart devices. I mean, yes, totally. Yeah, this can take any data. So IoT Central, all the IoT services can take any data. You can define the data that you want to send. So all because I'm using a pre-built device template that somebody's already designed for my device doesn't mean you can't do something something custom. So if I just go back to IoT Central here, yeah, I can download a device template for a well-known device. So if I've got a water sensor, or what other devices on here, occupancy sensors and all this kind of stuff. So yes, I can download predefined device templates for well-known devices, but I can create my own. And then when I send data, I can write my own code to send whatever data I want to IoT Central, to the cloud. So I've built, say, a plant monitoring solution where I've got a Raspberry Pi, I've got a soil moisture sensor stuck in the soil of the Pi, I've got temperature sensors, and I've written a little bit of Python code that gathers that data and then sends that up to the cloud. In fact, let me just drop in the chat a link to that one. So that's showing you how to build the whole thing custom yourself, but based off an agrotech type solution. But yeah, if you had any kind of smart devices that you want to monitor whatever, you could send data. So you could put a weight sensor under a plate that works out how much of your dinner you're eating, or you could build some kind of computer vision powered AI device that sits on your hat and looks at the food you're eating and tells you how many donuts that you've had. And then that will then, you could then send that data up to IoT Central. Kind of whatever data you want, whatever sensors you want, with whatever smart devices you want. Geek Trainer says, mechanical keyboard, I'm hearing that. It is indeed. It's my trusty Logitech G710 Plus. I've had it for years. Tried to load out, and I love this one. Really nice keyboard, nice little lights. I love it. It's a great keyboard. Beeper Dynamic HTTPS. Yep, that should automatically do the HTTPS on that link if you just click it. But yeah, that redirect to HTTPS. Yeah. Cool. So you can define your own data. You can build your own smart devices, get your data up to the cloud. So what was I talking about? IoT Hub. Yes, IoT Hub. So IoT Central is the software as a service platform. IoT Hub is the underlying architecture behind everything. IoT Hub is a big pipe. So you've got the whole idea of IoT Hub is it provides the kind of the backbone between communicating from your device to the cloud. It provides that big bidirectional pipe. So IoT Hub allows you to send data from your device to the cloud, from the cloud to the device. It can do management like provisioning devices. It can do firmware updates. It can send special types of messages to device to do things. It's basically this big pipe with all authentication, all that kind of stuff. And designed for billions of devices. Does really well on a small device, but also designed for billions of devices. It kind of provides that low-level architecture for communicating between the device and the cloud. And guess what? IoT Central is built on top of IoT Hub. So IoT Central is literally a software platform built on top of IoT Hub. So the hub is the low-level pipe. Central sits on top to give you that software as a service platform. And which one you pick depends on your needs. If you want Central to give you the lovely UIs and dashboards that it can give you, then you use Central. But if you go outside the realms of what Central can do, you can build your own more powerful dashboards, your own more powerful capabilities, and build on top of Hub. Okay. Some people even build their own keyboards. They can be smart devices. Yes, I know some people who build awesome keyboards, and I'm desperately avoiding going down that rabbit hole because that would start to be a very expensive rabbit hole, because I'd probably spend lots of money building keyboards, then put sensors to count my keystrokes, and maybe even build an emotion sensor that sees how angry I am when I'm banging away at the keys by how hard I hit them, and that would just be very expensive. So yeah. Geek Trainer, if mine were an IoT device, it would basically only send backspace signals. Yeah, lots of deleting and replacing. I wonder if you could wire up a thing that checks how often you copy and paste, and then connect that to some kind of network monitoring to see how often you copy and paste from Stack Overflow. Maybe have like a little counter on your keyboard that goes up every time you copy and paste, or an IoT dashboard that shows you every time you copy and paste from Stack Overflow. Or even maybe some kind of Pavlovian trainer response. You're trying to learn not to do that, so you get like a device that gives you like electric shock every time you copy and paste from Stack Overflow, something like that. It could be a bit of fun. Yeah. What was I saying? Yeah. So IoT Hub, this big pipe that you send data through, and this sounds a bit like Event Hub. This kind of big pub. Big pub. It's only 9:30 in the morning. I'm already thinking about the pub. This big hub, it sounds like Event Hub because it basically is. The IoT Hub is essentially an event hub with extra bits and pieces on top to handle the different IoT capabilities, the sending of firmware and bits and what have you. But it kind of sits on top of an event hub. So I've got an IoT Hub set up in here. Here's my IoT Hub. And this has got data. I've got another set of MX chip devices, again running pre-built firmware because I'm lazy, and they're sending data into the IoT Hub. And you can see, whee, look at all my messages. So this is all my data coming in. I've sent a lot of messages. My daily message quota is 400,000. I'm not too bad. I'm at 30,000. Okay, so we're good. So IoT Hub, I'm seeing messages come in. It's just this pipe. Now, it's not, I don't want to say it's not very useful. That's probably the wrong word. It's not a very accessible technology in the way that IoT Central is. So it's not like IoT Central where I can go to my dashboard and see data. IoT Hub is literally, it's just a hub. There's data coming in. I don't get a chance to monitor all that data. So yeah, it doesn't have a chance to monitor that data itself. What I have to do is connect this to something else. But when I connect it, I can treat it like an event hub. So essentially, you can think of the IoT Central event hub output to an event hub and IoT Hub as kind of like the same thing. They're both these pipes with data coming through. And then I can put things on the end of that to process the data. So with IoT Hub, I kind of have to put something on to process the data, or I can't do anything with it. Whereas with IoT Central, I choose to export to an event hub and get the data out the other side and do stuff with it. So what can I do with these event hubs? What can I do with them? Well, I can process messages off them. Actually, before I do, I'm going to show you something very cool. Inside VS Code, if you use Visual Studio Code, you should check this out. If you use Visual Studio Code with IoT, there is an extension called the what's it actually officially called? They renamed it. It's the Azure IoT Tools. That's what they call it. Azure IoT Tools. And this has got a load of extensions for Azure IoT Services inside VS Code. And one of the cool services it offers is in the Explorer. It offers, let's hide all these, this Azure IoT Hub Explorer. And so from here, I can point this to one of my existing IoT hubs. I can see the devices on the hub, and then I can manage those devices. So I can actually create a new device if I want to, provision a new device. I can get the tokens for that. I can get all the SAS token to allow my device to connect. And I can actually start monitoring the endpoint. So this is my way of kind of a quick and dirty debug where I can connect to that IoT hub. So this is now connected to essentially the event hub that sits inside my IoT hub. The message comes in from the device and it dumps it out to the console. So you can see here, I've got messages coming in from my different MX chip devices. The MX chip 1, temperature 25.5 Celsius. So I got, just from inside VS Code, I can kind of debug my devices. I can see those raw messages, which is a very, very cool little feature. So I'm just going to stop monitoring that. Oh, more questions. How to go out of the mental state of I'm too old to learn X? Okay, you are never too old. Ken Komoon, sorry if I get the pronunciation wrong. You are never too old to get out of to learn anything. You are absolutely never too old to learn anything. In fact, I'll tell you a little story. My dad is turning 74 this year. Okay, and his memory is not what it should be. Obviously, partly due to age and partly due to other things. And he is still learning. He has a Raspberry Pi, and he is learning Python. It's what's keeping his brain going. He is not by any means an expert on it, but he's got some really good kids books. And I love, first of all, let's say I love kids books on Python. In fact, 1 second. This is my favorite. This one here, the Osborne Coding for Beginners Using Python. I love this book. It's such an accessible book for everybody, not just for kids. It covers concepts in a way that can be explained to kids, which means they're accessible to anybody who wants to learn. It doesn't assume any knowledge. Yeah, it's kind of hard with a lot of content and books for professional developers that they assume too much. This book doesn't make those assumptions, and he's learning from kids' books like these how to code in Python. And he's got his Raspberry Pi set up out in his shed, because he's kind of traditional British old man who likes to have his shed. He's got his monitor, he's got his Pi, and he's doing the basics of Python. He's copying the listings, he's debugging his code, and he's learning Python. So there is no such thing as too old to learn X. You are never too old. Yeah, I'm not old at all. I'm only 43 and I'm learning things every single day. So you are never, ever too old. So my dad, 73, turned 74 end this year, I think. Doing my maths in my head right. Yeah, 73. And yeah, he's still learning stuff. He's still learning Python. So you're never too old. Absolutely never too old. I learned shader programming, and now the young kids at work fear me. Shader programming? What is shade? Oh, you mean like in 3D rendering, 3D models? All that stuff seems hard. I tried OpenGL stuff once many years ago, and I couldn't get my head around it. So, yeah, I avoid that. I can't do that. Yeah, Geek Trainer. Yep, never too old to stop learning. Fuse Snabel. Find something that you want to do and try to do it using X. Yeah, totally. Again, for my dad, he wanted to learn about these Raspberry Pis because he used to be an electrical engineer many years ago. So he wanted to kind of get back into electronics, and then he learned that it's all software based. So he started doing. He moved from the actually wiring things up to the software side of it, and that got him onto the Pi, and yeah, he loves it. So yeah, find the thing that you like doing and keep doing it. Will there be recording for viewing later? Yes, this will all be recorded and posted. Oh, Geek Trainer's already answered that one. Yay! Could IoT predict the perfect formula for tacos based off Taco Bell smart devices? But IoT couldn't, because IoT is just a way of getting data from things, but AI could. So yes, you could build some. I mean, you could build Taco Bell smart devices to gather data from this. Might be easier just to look at their raw data though. I assume Taco Bell have data on what people are buying, and then you could mine that data to see which are people's preferred Taco Bell foods. Or you could build a smart device that does do some kind of monitoring to look at the effects of the spiciness level on people, things like that, and use that to can you hit the perfect spice based off I don't know, skin electrical conductance measurements, sweat measurements, that kind of stuff. So you could probably build one. I've never actually had a Taco Bell. I've been living in the US for a year and I haven't had a Taco Bell yet. At some point, my wife and I decided we were going to go on a bit of a tour and just eat at all the traditional American fast food joints. And yeah, then coronavirus hit. So we haven't really had that. You could build something to monitor, just how hot your Taco Bell is by the amount of sweat on your brow and things like that. So yeah. Oh, and Fuel Snowbell is talking about shaders. Okay, you should do a stream on shaders. I don't know what to do. Dang, IoT can do anything. If you can measure it, you can use IoT for it. Yeah. If you've got a sensor for it, you can send data to the cloud and do stuff with it. I mean, I've got an IoT device that's a bit of a manual IoT device. I'm going to kind of show it off the camera. This little white thing on my arm. This is a Freestyle Libre blood sugar monitor. So what will happen is there's a little needle in this that goes under my skin, measures my blood sugar because I'm a type 1 diabetic, and then I can sync that data to the cloud. I have to use my phone to scan it. There's an NFC chip inside it, but I can scan this. So I can go into my phone, I can do a scan, and that can tell me what my glucose levels are. In fact, I even showed the camera there. It's actually edging up a little bit. It does this in the mornings due to a growth hormone burst. So I need to counteract that in a minute. But this will sync to the cloud, and then this data can be used. I can either use it myself to do analysis over my eating habits and medicine habits, or my medical staff can do that. So yeah, do anything. Right, where were we? Event endpoints, event hubs. Yeah, so IoT Hub is essentially an event hub. Data comes on the event hub, and you can pull data off and do stuff with it. And then same with what I was doing with IoT Central, I can put my data, I can export it to my event hub. So I've got all this data going to the event hub, and I can do stuff on the other end of the event hub. Now, one of the first things I'm going to show off to do with the Event Hub is a thing called Stream Analytics. And this is all very cool. I like Stream Analytics. So let's actually create a Stream Analytics thing. So what Stream Analytics is what allows you to find a job that does analytics on a real-time stream of data. So the idea is you'd have data coming in. You could then build a SQL-like query against the data, and then take the output from that query and do stuff with it. So just create this job, West US 2. Now, so Stream Analytics, say you write a query against streaming data, it processes the data comes in at real time, runs it through some kind of query, sends the data out on the other side. Now, Stream Analytics can be two places. It can run on the cloud or it can run on the edge. Okay, so what that means is I can create my Stream Analytics job that sits up in the cloud. I send my data to the cloud. It's run on the cloud. I pay for the cloud resources that I'm using to run the job, and then the output can go whatever. So it's all done on the cloud, and I'm paying for somebody else to host this, manage it, maintain it, and all the other things. I can also run this on what's called the edge. So the idea of the edge is you can build, say, for example, an AI model in the cloud, deploy that to an IoT device, and then run that locally. Kind of like sort of the on-premise versus data centers versus the cloud. The idea is you'd run a model locally. And the simple reason for doing this is cost. It keeps the cost down. So if you had, say, a factory with 1 million sensors in this factory, and you want to do analytics on this data, if you are sending all that data to the cloud, you are paying a lot of money in bandwidth, you're paying a lot for a super fast connection, and it's going to cost you a lot in cloud compute costs to run these jobs in the cloud, do all this analysis in the cloud. It's going to cost you a lot of money. And then if your internet connection drops out, you're shafted. Whereas on the edge, what you can do is you build a Stream Analytics job in the cloud and then deploy it to a device that runs in your factory. So in your factory, you'll have a device that's some kind of edge device. It's basically a computer running your code, and all your IoT devices will connect to that computer. It'll run your Stream Analytics job there, and then only the results will go up to the cloud. So that way, you're not paying for all the bandwidth for all your millions of devices. You're not paying for cloud compute time, but you do have to maintain and run your device on the edge. So you save your money, but you have that risk of failure. It's kind of the whole point about moving to cloud is it's somebody else's problem. Somebody else will manage it. There's teams of experts maintaining security and what have you. This is obviously going against that cloud model to run it on the edge, but use the cloud to train and maintain it. So that means anybody can use their cloud connection to work on these Stream Analytics jobs, tweak the query, tweak parts of it, and then push that back down to the device. So the cloud manages pushing that job to the edge, but it actually runs on the edge to save you money. In this case, I'm just going to do it in the cloud. So I click create, and this will go off and start creating my Stream Analytics job. These are usually pretty quick to create. And then what we can do is we can use this to do, there you go. It's quick, it's done. So I'm going to use this to actually query some data and then send this data to a CosmosDB database. That's what we do to start with. Okay, so first of all, I'm actually going to need a CosmosDB database. So let me just bring up a new window. And I've got my CosmosDB database already created, because if you've used CosmosDB before, it's not the fastest in the world to create things. So CosmosDB is a NoSQL database that's big and powerful and wonderful and expensive, but you get all the upside of stuff with it. So blob storage I was using earlier, it's just simple. I store the blobs in the storage. CosmosDB is a globally scalable, fault-tolerant, multiple consistency model type database thing. You can run this across the world. You can literally deploy to multiple countries with one click. If you decide you want to replicate your data in a different part of the world, it's kind of click, 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 and you're done. It's got different consistency models to make sure that the way the data is synchronized works with the way that you want. Very, very powerful. Can be very expensive. Does have a free tier. We all love free tiers. Everything I'm showing you today is a free tier, pretty much, apart from Stream Analytics. We love free tiers. But yeah, it's a kind of a great way to store data. And unfortunately, it's a bit slow to create. So I couldn't create one live. So I've got one I've already created. And then in here, I'm just going to create a container to put stuff in. So create a new database. Call this IoT Data container hub data. Okay. So that'll create my account for that. While I was doing that, let's go look at Stream Analytics again. So the whole point of Stream Analytics is you analyze a stream of data in real time. So the first thing you need to define is what is the input to my stream. So what is the stream that's coming in that I'm going to be doing this analytics on? So I can choose Event Hub, IoT Hub, or Blob Storage. In this case, I'm going to do IoT Hub. I'm going to do it coming on to what's coming into my IoT Hub, but I could do it on the Event Hub that comes out of my IoT Central application, or even the Blob Storage that comes out of my IoT Central application. So it kind of acts a bit like a database trigger. Every time you put something in Blob Storage, it'll run the analytics job. So I got IoT Hub. I'm going to call this IoT Hub because naming things is hard. And then the hub I want is this one. Yep. All the things. This will now create my input and just verify it for me. In a second. There you go. There's my input. So the next thing, I'm just going to look at the query briefly. We'll look at the output in a minute. Look at the query briefly. But the idea of this query is, you'll see here, if you've done any SQL before, this looks like SQL. And essentially, it is SQL. It's a SQL-like query that is run against the data, and you select whatever you want to select into where you want it to go to from where you want it to come from. So into your output from your input. And it got a few helpful bits and pieces. So we've got this nice little preview. This is the data that's coming in. So this shows, here is the data that's coming in from my IoT Hub, and I can kind of use this to build my query. And then this test results shows I can test the query, and it shows what's coming in. So the first thing is where I want to get it from, IoT Hub. So I can run this, I'll test this. This will now query IoT Hub. Now this won't pull things off the stream. This is just a test. It will use the data from the stream, but the data will still be on there. So it's not like anything, when I test it, I kind of lose anything. So this is what I'm getting by select star. I'm getting my message ID, temperature, and then this IoT Hub thing, this big blob of data, this big JSON blob. Now my input that's coming in is JSON. So I can actually do some quite complicated queries on this. In fact, if I just flip to raw, this is the raw data coming in. And I've got some entries in here, temperature, humidity, and I've got this IoT Hub object inside my JSON, or document inside my JSON that's got this connection device ID. So I can actually use this to build up complicated queries. So if I just say, name that I, for example, I can go I dot temperature, I dot humidity, and then I dot IoT Hub dot connection device ID. So I can actually go into the JSON inside here. If I now test this query, I should get a flattened version. Oh, no, I won't, because I can't spell. Wait for that to test to run. I have to try clicking test again. Let's try that again, now that I've spelled that correctly. And that should kind of flatten out the data a little bit. So I can actually see the temperature, humidity, and then the connection device ID. There we go. So I've got temperature. Sometimes the humidity value is null, sometimes temperature value is null, but I've got those data, and then the device that sent it that's been flattened out from the data. S. Fender Bender, do you mind if I ask which book tutorials your dad following to learn Python on Raspberry Pi? Yep, so this one here, the Osborne Coding for Beginners Using Python. This is one of the ones he's using. Really, really, really good book. I love this book. The artwork is fantastic. The samples are really good. So that's one. There are others, and I cannot remember what they are. Yeah, it's gone. It's gone. Mine's gone blank. There are some others he's learning from, which I don't have. So yeah, I don't know. I can't remember. But yeah, definitely this one. This Osborne Coding for Beginners one is one he's used, and yeah, he loves that one. So that's a really good book. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff on the raspberrypi.org. So the Raspberry Pi Foundation has published a lot of really, really good tutorials. Again, it's designed for kids in that it assumes no prior knowledge, which is pretty cool. You often get a lot of adults saying, "Oh, you should try doing this," or no, that assumes you already know a lot. But anything that's designed for kids is usually pretty good. But yeah, so check out raspberrypi.org. That's your main Raspberry Pi Foundation. They have a lot of good tutorials there as well. Obviously, if you've got some knowledge, if you can kind of know your way around an IDE, you kind of feel comfortable with setting up development environment and learning to code. We do have a load of really, really good Python videos that have been created. Geek Trainer is actually involved in creating a lot of those. So Mr. Geek Trainer, if you could put a link to your Learning with Python series on Channel 9 into the chat, that would be awesome. So yeah, it's got a lot of these really, really good videos. In fact, let's see if I can find it. Oh, there we go. Yep, Geek Trainer to the rescue. There we go. So that's a lot of good stuff. It kind of has some assumptions around that you know what an IDE is. Obviously, when you've got kids programming, a lot of them just don't know. They don't really know what to do. So if kids are learning, then yeah, this Osborne book is kind of fantastic because it doesn't really make any assumptions at all. If you've got a bit of confidence around using a computer, the video series is great. But yeah, the bald presenter, he's awful. He's absolutely awful. Don't let him put you off too much. And for those who don't realize, Geek Trainer himself is the bald presenter that he's talking about. So no, it's a really good series of videos. That if you're kind of comfortable with using a computer, it's a good series of videos. So yeah, so here's my data. Here's my stream analytics data that I've got coming in, and this query, when I actually activate this will run in real time. So every time a message comes in, it'll be run against this query and then sent somewhere. So what I can do, I'm just going to save that query for now, and then go back to my job and set up my output. So this is where my data is going to go, and this I'm going to set up CosmosDB. So I've got a lot of different outputs here. So different storage systems, table storage, SQL databases, Blob storage, CosmosDB. I can output to a service bus, so I can kind of take it from an event hub and send it out to another event hub or a service bus, or like a data lake, which is kind of big storage, or an Azure function. We'll look at Azure Functions in a. We may not look at Azure Functions because I'm not sure we're going to have much time. But yeah, if I've got an Azure function, I can actually call that from here. So this will, if you're used to Azure Functions, which is serverless compute, then you can build a function that takes there's an HTTP request, and this will then call that HTTP request, passing the data that comes out. So that's kind of pretty cool. For this one, CosmosDB, I'll call this Cosmos because naming is hard. IoT Data. What did I call my container? I forgot what I call my container now. I call it Hub Data. There we go. Hub Data. So I'll just test the output, make sure it works. Cool. Yeah, Geek Trainer did a session on Azure Functions yesterday, so that'll be out by Saturday. So there we go. So I've got my output to Cosmos. I go into my query. You got to go have your BP dynamic. Well, thanks for joining us. Really glad to have you here. Hope you had fun. Hope you enjoyed this. Right, so if I go Cosmos, what this will now do, I'll just test this query to make sure it works. This will now take this raw stream of data, select up the values, and then it'll put it into and just insert in CosmosDB. So when this is running live, as my data comes in, it'll run the query on it, put it in Cosmos. And that's pretty cool, so I can save that. Now, if I wanted to get a bit funkier, what I could do is I'm going to have to cheat slightly and find where I actually put the. Where did I put the code? Somewhere I put some code. But you can write a lot more advanced queries. So it's not just simple selects that you can do. There's a lot more advanced queries that you can actually run. So I'm just going to steal some code from somewhere else if I can find where I put it, because I'm rubbish at remembering syntax for some of these things. Not there. Where did I put the code? But what you can do is you can actually do things like group bys in the data. So there's a thing called a tumbling window that you can create. Where are we? Where did I put the code? Is it in here? I put the code somewhere. You always like when you have it all set up and then your computer goes to sleep and you lose things. Where are we? But yeah, you can set up group bys. You know, with standard SQL query, you can kind of group by a certain field. You can do the same with this. You can actually group the data that's coming in. Here we go. This is what I was looking for. So what I can do is I can do this. And I can go something like this. There we go. That looks more like it. So I can do something like this where So actually grouping it by the device ID and a tumbling window. So what this will do is, as a minute's worth of data comes in, it'll take the average temperature for that minute and the average humidity for that minute, split by the device ID. So that's, for MX chip 1, it's got a minute's worth of data, MX chip 2, etc. And then every minute, it'll then take the output and put in the CosmosDB. So I don't have to do, if I want to do this kind of analytics in my stream analytics job, I can do it. If I'm looking at things like, say, soil moisture, I'm monitoring a plant, I'm looking at soil moisture. I don't want live values every second because you're going to get certain fluctuations. But maybe over an average of an hour, if the moisture drops too low, then I want to automatically water the plant. So I kind of build these more advanced queries where I can do this kind of group by tumbling windows, things like that. And then from here, I can even start building things like custom functions. If I want to build a user-defined function in JavaScript, I can build one of those and then call that from my code. So I can build a whole lot of really complicated logic. And I've seen some of these stream analytics jobs that, whole page or 4 pages even of queries being done to get this data, to get all this data out. So pretty cool stuff you can do with it. I'm just going to do a simple select for now to save that query, and then I can just go back in here and go to my overview and start, and that's it. That will start my job. I can choose the start time, so I can either start it from now, so start processing data now, or I can actually go back in time and start from earlier data because my event hub has got 24 hours, 1 day's worth of maintained data there. And I can choose how many streaming units that I'm using. So this is how much power to put behind this. If I've got a lot of data, I want lots of streaming units. If I don't have much data, I don't need many streaming units. And obviously you pay, the more streaming units you've got, the more you pay. So that will now start, and then what that will do is eventually that will start streaming the data into my CosmosDB. So in a few minutes, I better go back to Cosmos and actually see the data there. But then obviously, I've just put it into Cosmos, but I could put this into like an Azure Functions for more analysis. I can put it into Blob storage. I can kind of do anything with my data. I've got this way of manipulating my data in real time as the data comes in and flows from one thing to the other. And that's pretty cool. I will very quickly, because time is flying. I'm supposed to be done by 10, so but we'll carry on for a few more minutes just because I'm having fun here. I will also show you something else you can do. So Azure Functions, as Geek Trainer said, there's a session he did on Azure Functions yesterday that's going to be appearing at some point. With Azure Functions, you can actually listen on event hubs. So this is pretty cool. I can actually build an Azure function that connects the event hub. And then every time a message is put on the event hub, my function is then triggered, and that does something. And you can do these. So Azure Functions, if you haven't come across them before, they are small blocks of code that are triggered by things. And that thing that triggers that code could be a web request. If you want to build like an API, you can do it as web request. It can be a database trigger on Blob storage or Cosmos. It can be an item on Event Hub, an item on IoT Hub. It can be a timer, just something that says run this block of code. And the idea is it's a small block of code that does something, and then you pay per execution of that code. And you kind of pay in there, you get like 1 million executions for free each month, and then you pay per million type thing. So it's quite a financially efficient way of running code, which is pretty cool. So I've got a Python one here that connects to an event hub, and then every time it processes an event, which could contain more than one message, it'll call my code. And it's a couple lines of code here. I've got some settings that tell it what event hub to connect to, and it can process my code. And I'm actually going to run this. I can deploy this to the cloud, or I can run this locally. And what's cool about this is because it's connecting to an event hub, it will just run locally and then show me the output. Because it will still connect to the event hub that's in the cloud. So, hoping this all works. So this will spin up the local version of Azure Functions and do the thing. So if you've not seen this before, this is very cool. So the idea of these functions, they run in the cloud, but the runtime that runs in Azure to keep functions running is also open source, and you can run it locally. So exactly the same runtime will run your functions locally for full debugging, which is very, very cool. And so you can connect this to existing connections up in the cloud. And you get a nice little Azure Functions logo in ASCII characters. Because who doesn't want a nice little Azure Functions logo in ASCII characters? Okay. Chug, chug, chug. This seems surprisingly slow. Normally it's like, and just it's done. But I guess there are a lot of things running at the moment. Cool. We'll leave that starting, and in a minute you'll see an output. It'll log out all the events coming through. On the function, starting the process. Cool. Ooh! I think I may have typed the wrong thing in the box. One of those days. Do I have the rights? I think I had the wrong connection string. Okay, let's try that again. Yeah, performance is inversely proportional to the number of people watching. That is so true. That is so true. I was streaming a session on using VS Code for an internal hackathon at Microsoft, and my machine just ground to a halt, just absolute ground to a halt. I literally, you click on a page in VS Code and it would take a minute to pop up. I don't know what happened. There's me clicking run and automatically updated. Hello, computer. Okay, it's now, VS Code has now died. I don't know if you saw before it died, it was actually outputting some things. Okay, let's. Okay, VS Code has died, but that did work. You may, if you rewind the stream, if VS Code is an Electron app, that's what happened. Yeah. Oh, there we go. There we go. Close that. Okay, I won't run it. Just rewind the stream a little bit, and you'll see that yes, it did actually for a little bit start spitting out the data. Hello. Right. I think my internet just blipped. What fun. Cool. We're back. Okay, just one last thing I'll touch on briefly before we wrap up is a thing called time series insights. So I won't set one of these up, but there is this service called time series insights. And the whole point of time series insights is to allow you to get insights. I won't click the add one because I've got a pie hole on here, so that will never work. The whole point of time series insights is for you to get analytics on your IoT data at real time. So the idea would be you connect this to, say, your Event Hub, and then you could then build models to look at your data. So you collect your data through the IoT Hub. You connect up IoT Hub on Event Hub, all these different ways of data coming in. You could then store that data if you want to, look to save it, and then you can do this kind of analytics on it. You can see in real time charts of the data, you can compare multiple charts together, and then you can start modeling your data. You can actually start building insights about that and running analytics on it. So if you wanted to look at, I don't know, if you're in Starbucks, for example, and you wanted to look at the mean time to failure from when something happens to vibration on the machine, you kind of plot that data. So you can actually build these models that say, yeah, when this starts to happen, how long till this happens, and you can start plotting that using Power BI. So it gives you a really, really powerful way of getting insights into your data. I'm kind of barely scratching the surface. At some point, I should probably do a stream where I just try and work out how to use it all. But yeah, it's a really cool way of getting everything, getting real-time analytics, seeing it, analyzing it back over time, and making decisions based off your data. So it's kind of a fun thing to do. And then obviously you can take the output from there and use that to control other things, such as turn down one of the machines because it's running too, or things like that. So yeah, there we have it. That's kind of how you can drink from the IoT Firehose. We looked at different ways to actually take the IoT data that's coming in and build that middle layer of processing the data. We've looked at connecting IoT Central to event hubs and blob storage, and how IoT Hub is basically an event hub, and then looked at we can run sort of stream analytics on there. We've seen VS Code for monitoring the event hub, little bits on functions. So yeah, thanks very much, everybody. Any more questions in the chat? I like VS Code. I'm happy to pay the Electron tax for it. But Spotify, my VPN app, and Electron. Yeah, Electron is good. Some apps using it are slow, some are not. But yeah, no, cool. Well, thank you, everyone. That was a bit of fun. Hope you enjoyed that. Most of what I've shown today you can do for free. So IoT Hub, if you process no more than 8,000 messages a day, you can use a free tier for that. Everybody can use a free tier. There's one free tier per Azure subscription. IoT Central, you can have, there's a free tier that lasts 7 days where you don't even need a subscription. If you have a subscription, we have 2 tiers, both of which are free for up to 2 devices. As soon as you go over 2, you pay cents per device. It's like 70 cents, I think, per device. But if you just want 2 devices to try it out, that's all free. Storage, not quite free, but that's pretty cheap for storing things. There's an Azure free account you can use to get credit for doing that. Stream Analytics is not free. That's kind of a paid for service, and that can get quite expensive. So if you want to have a play with Stream Analytics, just keep an eye on your credit. I had one set up that was churning through about $150 a month. That was my fault because I just went for all the default options and didn't really think about it. Luckily, it's somebody else's money, not mine. But yeah, so just be careful using Stream Analytics. But yeah, otherwise, thanks for listening. Hope you had fun and have fun playing with IoT devices.